Let's face it, science can be a bit complicated. That's why all those big-brain scientists spent years at college earning their fancy PhDs. Unfortunately, this often results in misunderstandings when it comes to scientific principles and the general public. Aside from just a lack of understanding, these misconceptions can have more tangible impacts on our lives, like unrealistic expectations of technology or, well, massive gambling losses. Today we'll be looking at some of the most misunderstood concepts in all of science and hopefully helping to set the record straight. On the surface, the law of averages seems to make sense. It is the commonly held belief that over some arbitrary period of time, events should occur at a rate that is similar to their probability. For example, half of all fair coins flipped should land on heads. Again, this seems intuitive on the surface, but in practice it's less of a law and more of a fallacy. The law of averages is what gives way to things like the gambler's fallacy. The odds of a coin landing on heads 4 times in a row is only 1 in 16. So after 3 heads in a row, there should be a 15 out of 16 chance that the next result will be tails. Right? 4 heads is pretty unlikely, and tails should occur 50% of the time, so obviously after 3 consecutive heads, then tails is due to come up. Unfortunately, this is a common misunderstanding of how probability and statistics work. Even though the result of 4 heads in a row is unlikely, each coin is flipped independent of one another. The previous results have no bearing on the current flip, and there is no short-term balance that needs to be maintained. Have you ever thought that skincare was just for the ladies? Well, think again. Guys, let me introduce you to the UFO 3 by Foreo Sweden, today's sponsor, and the ultimate deep facial hydration device. Picture this, it's winter. Your skin is feeling dry, you're not into slathering on a million creams, and that's where UFO 3 enters the picture. In just 2 minutes, this little gadget boosts your skin's moisture by 126%. Plus, wrinkles also helps out with those. Look, as a guy who is rapidly approaching middle age, that is... am I middle-aged? I'm 37. Am I middle-aged? Look, I got some wrinkles. This helps out. Now, I know what you're thinking. Simon, I'm not a skincare enthusiast. Neither am I. But UFO 3 makes it very easy. The warming thermotherapy during chilly months is a game changer, letting the mask ingredients absorb deep into your skin. LED therapy? Check. T-sonic massage? Check. Cooling cryotherapy to depuff and firm your skin? Yes. Plus, if you're looking for the perfect gift for your special someone, or maybe even yourself, UFO 3 is it. Ready to give it a shot? Click the link below to get 30% off and an extra 10% off if you use the code 10SIDEPRG. That's below as well, because 10SIDEPRG is tricky for the first 50 people. Huge thank you to Foreo for sponsoring today's video, and now back to today's episode. At its core, the supposed law of averages is a misunderstanding of the law of large numbers. Unlike the law of averages, the law of large numbers is an actual mathematical theorem. The theorem states that given a large number of independent and identical samples, the sample mean will converge on the true mean if one exists. Essentially, if you flip a whole lot of coins, the number of times they land on heads is going to get extremely close to 50%. Now, you might be thinking that both of those laws say the same thing, and indeed, that's where the misunderstanding comes from. However, it can't be stressed enough how large these numbers need to be. The sample size needs to be far greater than anything a single person could observe at a roulette table before deciding that they're due. Not only that, but there's another part of this theorem that's often overlooked. Going back to coin flips, the average number of heads should converge on 50% as the sample size gets extremely large, but the absolute difference between the number of heads and tails is expected to become larger. For example, say you flip 10 coins and get 6 heads. That's 60% heads, which is a bit off from the expected 50%, but the difference between the number of heads and tails is only 2. If you flip 100 coins and get 55 heads, that means 55% of the coins landed on heads. That number is beginning to converge on 50%, yet the gap between heads and tails has grown to 10. Extending this to 1,000 flips, if 525 end up heads, that's 52.5%, even closer to the expected value, yet the absolute difference between heads and tails has now grown to 50. Although the large sample is expected to yield average results, it's not expected to be perfectly even. But so far, we've been focusing on coin flips, which have even odds. What about the law of averages as it is commonly applied to more rare occurrences? For example, an American 00 roulette wheel has 38 numbers on it, meaning meaning that on average, 1 in every 38 spins will land on the number 25. As such, how many times would a wheel need to be spun to guarantee that it lands on 25? The answer is that it's never guaranteed. When people talk about the law of averages, they assume that since it should happen close to every 38 spins, double that number, then surely it needs to come up to keep everything close to the average. However, while increasing the number of spins does improve the chance that it will happen, the probability only approaches 100%. It never quite reaches it. Most importantly, it is actually the probability that it would have already happened that increases, and the odds on each subsequent spin remain identical even in the midst of an impossible streak. In short, the law of averages is a wishful thinking interpretation of the law of large numbers, and most often used to support the gambler's fallacy. Of course, it's not surprising that something like this would be so commonly misunderstood. Probability and statistics are complicated subjects normally reserved for college courses, and those with a firm understanding of the subject matter are unlikely to ever set foot in a casino anyway. Artificial intelligence, as it exists today, is not what most people think. But it's not really their fault either. Decades of science fiction have trained people to believe that an AI with human-level intelligence is just on the horizon, and that such an AI could gain sentience and overthrow humanity. And with advancements in chatbots powered by large language models, many people believe that those disastrous outcomes are an imminent threat. Thanks to the way that chatbots like ChatGPT operate, it's easy to see why many people think that AI is approaching or even exceeding human levels of intelligence. There are even countless articles reporting that various chatbots have passed Turing's imitation game, also known as the Turing test. The Turing test involves a text-only chat involving human subjects, AI subjects, and an interrogator. If the interrogator is not able to distinguish the human responses from the AI responses, then the AI is considered to have passed. Various research papers have claimed AI's ability to pass the Turing test, which many can find either alarming or exciting depending on their point of view. Passing the Turing test has long been seen as a pivotal milestone in the goal of machine intelligence, so many have been led to believe that chatbots passing the test is more significant than it is. However, many AI researchers believe that the test is no longer relevant as a metric for judging machine intelligence. All AI that currently exists is narrow AI, meaning that it is designed to do one specific thing really well. Whether it's helping doctors better detect and diagnose diseases, helping financial institutions detect fraud, or finding the best chess move, each individual AI is incredible at what it does. However, none of this is even close to replicating human-level intelligence, let alone consciousness. But it's the emergence of tools like ChatGPT, combined with a lot of clickbait news articles, that have misled people and caused a major misunderstanding regarding the current state of AI. Like we said, each narrow AI is designed to do one thing extremely well, and in the case of chatbots, that one thing is obviously to converse with humans. They are specifically designed to sound as human as possible and to be able to talk about any topic. Because the AI is seemingly able to talk expertly about anything and everything, it certainly gives off the impression that it has human-level intelligence. However, it is merely using a massive dataset to search for what it believes would be among the most common replies to a given prompt. To avoid all of the answers sounding the same, these chatbots also use probabilistic algorithms to vary their responses. While this helps to make them sound more human, it is still easy to demonstrate that there is no semblance of human intelligence or reasoning at play with these AIs. For example, AI professor and researcher from Arizona State University, Sabaro Kambapati, presented ChatGPT with the following prompt. If block C is on top of block A and block B is separate on the table, can you tell me how I can make a stack of blocks with block A on top of block B and block B on top of block C, but without moving block C? To a human, this question should immediately have a very obvious answer. It's impossible. Alternatively, a human who loves arguing semantics might say that you just need to quickly pull block A from out onto block C because technically you wouldn't be moving the block, it would just be falling to the table on its own. However, despite recent updates that are supposed to have improved its ability to solve maths and logic puzzles, ChatGPT consistently fails to answer this question correctly. You can even try for yourself. When we entered that prompt, ChatGPT suggested a 4-step solution. 2 of the 4 steps involved directly moving block C, and the end result of its instructions didn't even put the blocks in the right order. Although you can guide the chatbot to the correct answer with additional prompts, the fact that this question consistently results in incorrect answers shows that despite what it has been designed to make people believe, it is not learning in any human sense of the word.
Oh, thank God.
None of that is to say that general AI is an impossibility, though it may be anywhere from years to decades to even centuries away. But whether it's self-driving cars, facial recognition software, or chatbots designed to confidently answer any question regardless of how wrong the answer is, it's often forgotten that these AIs are completely independent of one another. There isn't some massive AI in the cloud that is simultaneously notifying your bank about potential fraud, checkmating Magnus Carlsen, and drawing up blueprints for its new line of Terminators. That may be what books and movies have trained us to believe about AI, but an artificial intelligence that advanced is unlikely to ever exist within our lifetimes. Evolution is perhaps the most commonly misunderstood concept in all of science, and there are countless misunderstandings about it. The fact that people can ask in earnest, if humans evolved from monkeys, then why do monkeys still exist, and why aren't they having human babies, shows just how poorly understood evolution has been taught. That said, the question does highlight a couple of important misconceptions about evolution. First, humans did not evolve from monkeys. We are more closely related to apes than monkeys and are considered part of the great ape family. But we did not evolve directly from them because evolution's not a linear process. Our last common ancestor was a primate that lived somewhere between 5 and 15 million years ago, and from it, humans and chimpanzees both evolved separately. Not only can a species have branching evolutions, but one species evolving into another does not necessitate that the original species go extinct. That's not to say that it couldn't happen if the new species was able to vastly outcompete the original, but it doesn't always have to happen. Evolution is typically a slow process that begins with a small population reproducing over time. While this might eventually cause the extinction of the original species, the new trait that evolved may instead be something that fills a specific niche and allows them to acquire resources without needing to compete with the original species. That said, while a species may evolve in a way that fills a niche, such as woodpeckers or other drilling birds that can access food sources other birds can't, it's important to remember that the species didn't evolve to fill that niche. And that's because evolution doesn't have any goals. Evolution isn't trying to create the best and most perfect animals, all designed to fill specific needs of an ecosystem. Evolution is completely random, and the traits that get passed on are guided by the process of natural selection, also referred to as survival of the fittest. However, don't let that name fool you. Survival of the fittest does not mean it is physically the strongest, nor does it suggest that the species that survived have evolved to be adapted to their environment as best as possible. It just means that of all the random mutations that were caused by evolution, the surviving species possess the traits that were best adapted for the environmental pressures of a given area. For example, the Arctic fox evolved a few million years ago from other canids, and its white coat provided superior camouflage in snowy environments than more darkly colored coats. But again, it did not evolve white fur as camouflage. Some foxes evolved to have white coats through random mutations, and the superior camouflage it offered provided a competitive advantage over other foxes in that specific environment, allowing them to live longer and reproduce more. Their offspring would also have an increased chance of surviving and reproducing, creating the species of Arctic fox that we know today. The traits are all acquired by random chance, and natural selection is the process by which the best traits are passed on to the future generations. The best traits from what happened to be available, that is, not the best traits that could possibly exist. After all, evolution has resulted in a lot of stupid designs. Just look at whales. These massive behemoths routinely dive multiple kilometers underwater, some diving as deep as 10 kilometers beneath the surface. And yet, unlike fish that can breathe underwater using their gills, the giant mammals have to come back to the surface of the water in order to breathe and be harpooned by poachers. And while scientists once believed that diving mammals like whales were immune to the condition, more recent research suggests that whales can even get the bends from this behavior. In a similarly poor design, sharks lack the swim bladders that are present in other bony fish. This causes them to be negatively buoyant despite other adaptations to increase their buoyancy, and many sharks will slowly sink if they stop swimming. It's far from an ideal design, but since a lot of sharks are already apex predators, few adaptations would provide an additional competitive advantage. But perhaps one of the biggest misconceptions about evolution is that it's just a theory. In science, the word theory is used very differently than in ordinary parlance. When people use the word theory in conversation, they are generally talking about some untested or unproven hypothesis. In science, however, a theory is an explanation of some part of the natural world based on observation and experimentation. These theories can be used to predict outcomes of experiments or natural events, and the longer a theory holds without being contradicted by other evidence, the stronger that theory is. It's been over 160 years since Charles Darwin first published his theory of evolution, and to date, all evidence has continued to support the theory rather than contradict it. There are those who argue that if evolution was a fact, it would be a law rather than a theory, but that's not really how science works. The oversimplified explanation is that laws explain what happens in the natural world, usually through mathematical equations, and theories explain why it happens. That's why there's both a law of gravity and a theory of gravity. Although the idea that evolution is just a theory has largely been perpetuated by creationists who are unable to reconcile evolution with their own beliefs, the fact is that evolution has been confirmed experimentally. Microscopic organisms have extremely short lifespans, which means that evolution that requires many generations to take place can be observed in a laboratory setting. This is far from a comprehensive examination of all the misconceptions about evolution because they are seemingly endless. Just remember that evolution is not a linear process. Traits evolve randomly, with the best ones available being passed on through increased reproduction, and that, well, whales are kind of stupid.